This is DC Hammer. Welcome to the DC Hammer Show, where until the deep state took down our live streaming capability last week, preventing us from doing live broadcasts Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock Eastern Time. So as I said, Friday I will be pre-recording DC Hammer shows daily, Monday through Friday, and uploading them to this YouTube channel. So let's get right to it. China, China, China. So as President Trump and his trade representatives continue to spray water on the fire spewing from the mouth of the Red Dragon, aka Communist China, by leveling the trade relationships between the two countries as the Chi-Coms, Chinese communists in China, continue to try to put a happy face on the fact that they are being beaten into submission after decades of unrestricted intellectual property theft, military secret pay for play, can you say the Clinton crime family and Chinagate 1.0, and China will tackle U.S. trade dispute in 2019, according to Commerce Minister Zhang Shan. So as you read this article from China News, it sounds like reasonable action being taken to make minor changes to a bilateral relationship, but that's not the reality, as the United States is actually averting disaster as an American president, as in President Trump, is the only one standing up to the Beijing bullies. But in the article from the China News, you would be led to believe by the words being used in the presentation from their point of view that it's actually the Chinese are trying to be the reasonable people coming to the table in order to just iron out some little wrinkles that have been handed to them as President Trump has mixed everything up and created problems. So the Chinese are running to the rescue in order to pull this relationship out of the fire and put it back on track and ensure that the United States and China has a productive and equal relationship, when in reality what's been happening for years is the Chinese have had this completely unfair trade relationship, and beyond that they have used a variety of illegal techniques in order to gather what they wanted as far as throwing the net out and beyond just normal trade relations, but also then gathering in what they need to push their military ambitions forward, to take action against anybody in the area that might stand up to them and create a problem as far as their ability to push their communist totalitarian platform out throughout the entire world. So, as Zhang said in Beijing, that they're promoting outside investment and will work to pass a foreign investment law and improve its dispute resolution system. So that sounds pretty benign and forward-looking and positive, but bottom line is the Chinese have forever, since back to the Clinton administration, known that they can play the United States as suckers and do everything that we can't do in this country in order to have these relationships that end up with China always being on the winning side. And now that for the first time they're up against someone like President Trump with his art of the deal, who knows how to prevent himself from being suckered into a bad play, is now taking them to task and putting things back on even keel. Meanwhile, according to the New American, in the once great nation of Germany, as we reported in previous broadcasts, the nationalist movement, which has been picking up steam with the Alternative for Germany, the AfD party, vowing to reverse Angela Merkel's open border policy, which has put the indigenous population at risk as the flood of thousands of culturally antithetical Middle Easterners and North Afrikaners continues. Apparently, supporters of Frau Merkel have taken a page from the fascist brown shirts handbook and have adopted a policy of, if you can't beat them harder. So the headline on this from the New American is, was this actually an assassination attempt? So the leader of the Conservative Party, that AfD party, Franz Magnitz, was violently attacked by 3 men and left for dead, beaten, a gaping wound to his head, and was left bloodied, and the perpetrators believed that they had put him into a condition from which he would not recover, and so this obviously was an assault of a political nature, And the nature of the attack is being taken by the party itself, the AfD, and anybody with eyes to see and ears to hear would believe that this truly was motivated. Somebody on Merkel's side was trying to take matters into their own hands, kind of like an Antifa or Black Lives Matters kind of a reaction to the fact that this conservative party in Germany is gaining traction and is actually working against the deep state. Of course, the German police have yet to arrest any of the three alleged attackers. By what you can see in this picture, I think alleged is kind of a weak term for a man who was almost murdered by these people. But the co-leader of the party, Alexander Gauland, reporting in Berlin, said that this is the result of ostracism and agitation that AfD faces. So he compares the tactics that were being used against them to the tactics that the Nazis used in Germany. That's a pretty easy claim to make when you compare the activities of the brown shirts in the 1930s against their opponents, the people that they wanted to put down. So apparently the party claims that there have been hundreds of attacks against its members in the last 5 years since it was founded. Last week there was an explosion outside of one of its offices in Dobeln that damaged doors and windows. But you don't know what they're going to do next. You got to stand up to the tyranny, and unfortunately, this is the kind of reaction that the left uses against anybody that disagrees with their point of view. And don't forget about the violence in this country that's similar to what's happening against the AfD representatives in Germany, as Michael Savage has been threatened on numerous occasions. We had Representative Steve Scalise, Republican from Louisiana, who was almost killed as he was playing baseball back in 2018. The attack on Rand Paul. Dave Kustoff, a Republican from Tennessee, was run off the road. That was back in 2017. And the list goes on and on with the rabid lunatics of the left continuing to, instead of engaging in a battlefield of ideas, a comparison of positions, a debate in order to surface the best positions of both parties for one to prevail in a comparison of ideas, instead they get out the bike locks and the baseball bats and beat their opposition into submission. Because after all, once again, if you can't beat them in the war of ideas, then you can beat them with a big chunk of wood. I guess it only goes to show you that when you have philosophers like Friedrich Nietzsche setting the stage for a lot of your thought in the way that you do things, the Nazis used Friedrich Nietzsche as one of their philosophers in order for them to develop their platform. This is a God-hating, hate-filled approach to dealing with people with whom you have differences. And you have the occult involved, like an Aleister Crowley, who stated that do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. In other words, whatever you choose, since there is no God, according to people like Crowley and Nietzsche, you can do whatever you want to anybody that you have a disagreement with. So as reported in the Daily Wire, the House Democrats are busy enjoying their paid vacation. It looks like Nancy Pelosi wrapped up her tour of Hawaii and is now hanging out on the beach in Puerto Rico, hanging out with her elitist buddies, the lobbyists, with free rooms to the tune of $429 a night, meals on the cuff as well. Of course, a notorious New Jersey fraud king, Senator Bob Menendez, decided to crash the party as well. So as the government employees that the Democrats continue to cry alligator tears over for their continued paid vacation, although their paychecks are delayed, they will receive full payment for not having worked for this entire period. But at the same time, the leaders of the Democrat Party are offshore junkets gathering support from lobbyists and doing fundraising, and doing this in a time when President Trump continues to be holed up in the White House, ready and willing to sit down and negotiate with the Democrats in order to resolve the shutdown, the government shutdown, and issues involving the wall. But since the Democrats have absolutely no concern for what's going on down at the border, and actually want the illegal immigration, the drug running, and the gun running to continue, they have no intention of sitting down at a negotiating table with President Trump. They just want President Trump to do what Republican presidents in the past have always done, and that is take a promise of a future action by Democrats in order to solve issues like the illegal immigration and allow then the budget to go through on the terms that the Democrats find favorable, with absolutely no intention of ever living up to any promise they may make. It's gotten to the point, though, where the Democrats don't even make the promises anymore. They flat out say they're not going to do anything to address the concerns of the American people and the Republican Party. But on the other hand, they expect the American people and the Republican Party to pony up any kind of a concession to their choice causes without anything coming their way. So Democrats, it's never give and take. It's always take, take, take. But as the situation concerning the wall continues to be of grave concern to most Americans, free-thinking Americans, you have this piece by the True Pundit talking about how the wire is going to trip soon, the wire being the tripwire that would trigger the declaration by President Trump of a national emergency. So the statements in this article are based around Representative Andy Biggs, who is a Republican, House of Representatives of Arizona, and he then was talking about how President Trump has seriously considered declaring the national emergency over the border situation. And President Trump told Sean Hannity this week that he absolutely has a right to make a declaration of the national emergency if he can't reach an agreement with the congressional Democrats for funding on the border wall. And as previously noted, there's no way in the world that the Democrats are going to throw any kind of a bone or sit down and talk to President Trump across a negotiating table as adults. They're going to continue to throw their temper tantrums, project their behavior on President Trump by accusing him of throwing temper tantrums, and with their help in the Marxist screaming media, continue to make it look like everything is President Trump's fault when nothing could be further from the truth. And don't forget that past presidents have declared national emergencies over things of lesser significance than required security of the nation by the border wall and what's happening down on the border between the United States and Mexico. For example, President Obama declared a national emergency over swine flu, and that turned out to be, not as if that isn't a bad thing, but it's far less pervasive as far as damage done to the entire country as what is happening with the movement of guns, drugs, and human trafficking down on the border between the United States and Mexico. Well, it appears that things are continuing to get worse in the United Kingdom. You've got Milo Yiannopoulos, conservative provocateur and best-selling author, announcing that he has consulted with an immigration attorney and will be seeking asylum in the United States. So it's gotten to the point in the United Kingdom with the mass immigration of Muslims into the United Kingdom and their stance, the Muslim stance on homosexuality, and the fact that Milo Yiannopoulos is a homosexual, that he is stating that he has come to the point where it is not safe for him to be in the United Kingdom, and he is seeking asylum here in the United States. So over the past couple of years, Yiannopoulos, Milo, has become a star of the conservative counterculture in the United States. He's been banned on Twitter, deplatformed from crowdfunding sites, and has made a tour that has been applauded by the people that attend to really want to listen to what he has to say, but attacked by everybody on the left as he continues to make his populist and nationalist appeals. So as Milo continues to mix his humor with the truth in a way that makes points about why not only his case for asylum makes sense, but most of his other points of view also have enough truth in them, enough of a basis in reality, that his point gets across and people are red-pilled and otherwise gain understanding about the issues in a way that he is uniquely able to present them, and especially to the younger audiences that may have not heard anything from a conservative point of view before stepping into an audience in front of Milo. And the Muslim threat is not just getting worse in the United Kingdom. In Italy, it appears prison guards are on an imam's lunch menu as he warned them, "I will kill you and eat your corpses." So this is from the Geller report. Pamela Geller is reporting on this. And it appears that an imam in Italy and he came there through the Hijra, which is the immigration that is supported by Muhammad. If you read his writings and the history of what he did, the movement that he made from Mecca to Medina, and then in subsequent centuries, there have been other movements of Muslims from one country to the next that fall under the classification, what was set as an example by Muhammad back in the early days of the Hijra. And what Pamela Geller writes in this article is that a radical Muslim imam, Muhammad Jabali, he's set for deportation back from Italy, back towards from whence he came, and he is now threatening to kill the prison officers, and spiced it up by saying they would actually then eat their dead bodies. So this is interesting from someone that you would think would want to lay low and play the "I'm here for your benefits" card, but apparently he's not willing to go along with the Marxist Screaming Media's presentation of what most of these immigrants are like, and he's truly bearing the sword and showing the true face of what many of these people that are making the movement from North Africa and the Middle East to countries in Europe truly have on their minds. Meanwhile, Rod Rosenstein and the Department of Justice apparently are exploring ways to make it more easy, if you can believe this, to spy on journalists, according to The Hill, as reported by John Solomon. So it appears that for months now, the Department of Justice has been behind the scenes working on a revision of its guidelines governing how, when, and why prosecutors can obtain the records of journalists, particularly in leak cases. So again, we get into a situation where the irony is just beyond belief, as the leakers in chief, the people, the Department of Justice, the FBI, the people like Robert Mueller in the special counsel's team, have perfected the art of the leak. So Rod Rosenstein apparently has been working on this change in the guidelines for how the Department of Justice can proceed in order to deal with journalists, which naturally means journalists with whom they disagree. Not all journalists, but just the ones that cause trouble as far as implementing the deep state plans. So he's been working, Rod Rosenstein's been working behind the scenes in order to destroy the First Amendment and create a situation in which the Department of Justice can continue to ramp up its actions against journalists like Cheryl Atkinson, who is reported on Fast and Furious back in 2011 and 2012 and was then attacked by the Department of Justice. She has a Fourth Amendment lawsuit coming before a hearing in order to fight back against how she was mistreated. But at the same time, apparently Rod Rosenstein doesn't think that the tactics of the Department of Justice are strong enough, and has been working on ways to make them even stronger against certain elements of the press with whom they disagree. It's interesting that this article notes that Acting Attorney General Matt Whitaker is aware of what Rod Rosenstein has been working on, but apparently hasn't weighed in yet, saving his determination, since Rod Rosenstein does report to Matthew Whitaker right now, in order to make a determination as to whether these changes that Rod Rosenstein apparently is putting together for presentation to his bosses, changes to the current relationship and the ability for the Department of Justice to take action against journalists with whom it disagrees. We'll see how this goes, and then whether this is then turned back by Matthew Whitaker or rubber stamped and put into place. But it's interesting that at a time when it's obvious that the government has gone way too far in what it is doing in order to clamp down on opinions and voices with which they disagree, is now actually assuming that those actions they've already taken aren't strong enough, and are trying to put into place some even more egregious tactics that they would use in order to continue this onslaught against the Fourth Amendment and the First Amendment. So Q-Team is reminding us that one of the Democrats' favorite campaign donation tricks, that is forming relationships with their leftist nonprofit partner organizations, such as Planned Parenthood, in order to create a money-sharing loop. The Dems and the government fork over huge amounts of taxpayer cash to organizations like Planned Parenthood, and those organizations then turn right around and make huge campaign contributions right back to the Democrats. It's a closed loop. The Democrats have perfected. Q team is pointing it out to us, and it'll be interesting to see if this is, since Q is supposedly military intelligence aligned completely with President Trump and working closely at his side, I would hope then that President Trump is perhaps going to take action in the future in order to deal with this obvious disparity in how the Democrats always figure out how to take any legislation or any policy and turn it to their own favor, never do anything by the rules or fairly. They always do things in order to ensure that they prevail in any money-gathering pursuit. And finally, last week we posed the question, what if the appointment of William Barr to be the new Attorney General is just another deep state move to protect Mueller, instead of the Department of Justice and FBI being brought to task for their misdeeds and restored to their once vaunted positions as the preeminent law enforcement agencies in the world? Well, today we ask another question. What if Barr, who has publicly stated that he wants Hillary Clinton's Uranium One sedition investigated and has a close relationship with Mueller, will in fact use U1 Bob to actually open up a real investigation? That would be an examination of the sale of 20% of the United States uranium deposits to Russia in return for a $145 million donation to the Clinton Foundation, the Clinton Fraud Foundation. So just need to kind of step back and see what happens. This is going to be interesting. No one really understands what William Barr will be like in a role as Attorney General, as a redo, second time around, as he was the Attorney General appointed by George Herbert Walker Bush, Bush 41. We'll see how he approaches things second time around. So to the deep state operatives and their minions, our New World Order governing overlords, the black hats everywhere, I say repent. Your time is running out. The hammer of justice is headed your way. Abandon the leaking ghost ship while you can. Save yourselves from this wicked generation, for we will never surrender, we will never be silenced, and we will continue to fight on to victory in God's name. God bless you all, and we are looking forward to being with you again tomorrow.